Hi, so my name is Nicholas Brewer, or Nick more usually, and I work for Infosys, and I run the solution consulting practice globally. So we work with banks who are looking to buy new systems to understand their needs and try to match our solutions to what they want.
So what's special about your systems and how do they relate to blockchain?
Well, a very good and very relevant question. So blockchain is very much part of the conversation at the moment, and I think the last year has been interesting because before that it was something more like a science experiment. So banks were talking about the technology and trying it out in labs, but the last 12 months have seen banks move it more into a proof of concept. So banks have stopped having it just as a technology question and started to actually try to apply test transactions and understand some of the implications on their business. But nobody's actually made it really live yet, for real, so we haven't quite got there.
So what banks are doing in order to actually legalize blockchain? Why does it take so long in order for blockchain, for cryptocurrency, for Bitcoin, whatever is out there to become legal?
So it's partly a legality question, but it's also operational. So there are really three reasons. The first one is that banks are just quite slow at technology. They have very large platforms with a lot of planning already in place, so it simply takes time to roll out change. But behind that, some of the experiments which have been carried out with it have thrown up some interesting business questions which banks need to work out amongst themselves to look for common practice. So I can give an example. One of our clients at the moment is testing international retail remittances. And so the way that that works away from blockchain is they send a message to fund all of the payments in the day they expect and then send a message for each payment. If you take those away and start using blockchain for the individual payments, if it's a cross-currency question, you actually have a foreign exchange deal with a foreign exchange rate. And the banks don't know whose rate to use, the sending bank, the receiving bank, an automatic rate. And so there are questions around how that works. There's also questions around the settlement of the money at the end. So they've got so far, but you're left not with technology issues, but with genuinely old-fashioned banking issues, and there needs to be a consensus from the industry about what view they will take.
Don't you think that actually implying cryptocurrency is, like setting blockchain would be much more harder rather than maybe setting up a better banking system with underdeveloped countries? So the cryptocurrency's big advantage that everyone can use it would be sorted.
So I think we should be careful to distinguish between Bitcoin and blockchain. Bitcoin is a usage of blockchain, and it has its own place, and it's a cryptocurrency and has a lot of controversy. People are for it, people are against it. It's almost a political question. But the thing which makes it work is the blockchain technology, because it means that a transaction is automatically shared, it's free and it's verifiable. So at the moment banking uses a somewhat old-fashioned way of transferring information. It sends a message with authentication through a central network, and that costs money, and the systems take time. The message might be immediate, but it's not real time. What blockchain offers is a free message, which anybody who's authorized to can see it, so transactions with lots of parties are automatic, and it's immediate. And so it's quite transforming. Partly for cryptocurrencies with payments, but you could also see financial markets for different kinds of instruments developing in the future. So at the moment credit trading is not so active because it's very expensive to do. But if you made it free to do it, free to do the messaging and the trading, maybe you'd have a new financial market with more liquidity. So it sort of raises more questions rather than there's no answer for them at the moment.
So see, nowadays there are so many threats from around because as long as the technological kind of industry is moving forward, there are also more obstacles every day or more challenges. So at the moment, what are the main challenges for the blockchain to be actually widespread?
So the main challenge is an understanding of who will govern it, who will look after the rules and regulations, how it fits into existing banking infrastructures. So if I have domestic payments in a currency which take a day or two to clear, and I have real real-time blockchain, what happens to the existing payment mechanism? And it raises operational questions for banks. If there's a real-time payment for retail banking, the old way that banks manage liquidity by adding up all the payment instructions today and knowing what they have to settle tomorrow, sort of isn't there anymore. And that's quite a challenge to the back-end systems, and maybe that's one of the biggest impacts.
Do you think that blockchain system will help or make corporate banking a little bit more personalized, a little bit more retail?
So I think it might do it, but inadvertently. So blockchain offers a threat to banks because it opens a door to different kinds of institutions offering the same kind of service. So in the end there will always be a bank because there's real external world currency being held by a bank. But the bank at the moment has a channel front end and integration to corporate systems. It has current accounts, it has payment instruments, it has relationship managers. The piece which is worth the least to the bank is the account. And what blockchain and other technological and regulatory changes like Payment Services Directive and real-time SEPA challenges, they let other providers step into the space that banks are in. So banks have a problem in the end that they have a shrinking area, and how do they generate value? Do they offer an API economy? Do they offer a better service? Do they work with fintechs? Do they start their own fintechs? Or do they simply withdraw to being a cheap transactional provider? Because of that, I think there will be more innovation in what corporates and SMEs get offered in banking, but it may not be by the banks. It may be by startups and other. So a good example would be online FX brokers also offer B2B corporate banking. And that's been a challenge to banks. You could argue they've offered a better service than the banks do.
Tell me more about Finical.
So Finical is a name for a whole collection of products. At the core of it there's a core banking product which does retail and corporate banking, but we've always kept abreast of changes, so we have a treasury solution and we have more traditional payment solutions and things like this. What's there at the moment in quite a large investment is interest in blockchain, which we've just been talking about, so probably I won't cover blockchain again at this point, but also looking at things like real-time SEPA, the Payment Services Directive, and more front-end changes through our partnership with Samsung and Mangini. We're looking at bio-authentication, which people often see as a purely retail banking play, and it's certainly important. But it's also key for banks' own staff inside the bank and for corporates to rapidly authenticate users and their rights within the system.
So Infosys is a global provider, one of the first ones of software, banking software. So are you one of the first ones to actually implement biometrics as well?
We're a very early adopter of this, so it's a partnership with players in that field. So for example with Samsung, we certainly don't operate in the same space as Samsung, but you can see this is a coming together of the device and device platform and financial software providers. So we are an early adopter in those areas. And partly because of the number of conversations we have with our clients, who tend often to be larger banks, we find there's quite an interesting series of proof of concepts happening both in our traditional markets of South Asia and Southeast Asia, but also in the US and Europe. So I would watch this space over the next 12 months for some announcements from that.
I actually know someone else who's working on biometrics as well, quite actively, so you better watch your back.
It's a competitive space, and you know, if you ever find yourself in a position where you have no competitors, you're either very, very lucky or you got it very, very wrong.
Why do you think that you're better than your competitors?
So we're better for several ways, and it depends. I mean, there's no better and there's no worse. It depends on what somebody wants to do. We have a very large consulting and global reach, and we have a large number of alliances with other large providers. So if a bank's looking for a provider who can provide solutions for many years to come and keep up to date with the market as it changes, we would certainly be somebody worth talking to because of the reach and size and scale of the operation.